Taiwan is one of the world's most susceptible countries to disinformation.
台湾是被境外假讯息攻击最剧烈的国家。
A local NGO says Taiwan could see a rise in disinformation campaigns.
The Bureau recorded over 2.3 million pieces of disinformation last year,
using AI and fake accounts to sway public opinion.
Taiwan actually has a vibrant civil society, many people who work on fact-checking and exposing disinformation.
Taiwan has long been a target for disinformation. Not just false stories, but efforts to confuse people and undermine trust. As elections approach, fake content is spreading faster and getting harder to spot. Today on Correspondents, we look at who's pushing back and how.
Hello and welcome to Correspondents, where we go beyond the headlines with experts and journalists based here in Taiwan and across the region. I'm Andrew Ryan. Today, we're speaking with a civic tech organizer who helped build a tool that lets people fact-check what they see online, and a journalist working to stop misinformation from spreading even further. They're both with us in the studio today. Billion Lee is the co-founder of Cofacts, and our own Alan Liu, who covers the defense beat for TaiwanPlus. Welcome to you both. Now, I want to start by showing you a viral video of a roasted pig that appears to be coming back to life. I think it's kind of funny, but some people might find it a little unsettling, so just a warning first. Have a look at this.
台中某餐厅惊现烤猪火起来，全场客人吓坏。用餐过程中，原本放在桌中央的整只烤猪突然抽动，翻到饭菜与餐具，甚至从桌上跳落地面。
Now, Billion, I think a lot of people who see that can tell immediately that it's AI, but let's say I can't. I watched the video, I'm not sure, what do I do?
When somebody inside Taiwan, or maybe they're not located in Taiwan, they can just watch this video and forward this video, share that to Cofacts chatbot.
How do I share it to the Cofacts chatbot?
They just like press long and then just click share.
Okay.
They just like share on WhatsApp, share on Line app. They just share the video to Cofacts as a contact.
And I can also share it through your website as well.
Yes, you can also look on the website because like we provide website service and also chatbot service.
What do you think is behind this? Do you think this is just entertainment, or is there a purpose perhaps behind why this video is created?
Normally we would say disinformation contains like two elements. One is political element. The other might be advertising element. So there's like a two strategy, one for economic, one for political.
And what do you see when you see the roasted pig?
You can see the video also use a basic term as a template. They say that's a news, like Taiwan 新闻. They also show some banners and also they put other people on the video.
What do you think the purpose is behind this video?
If you can say they feel like imitate the news to make people think of there might be a news, or maybe not sure if that's accurate from the news. What if someone really not familiar with like a new technology, for example, like solar, or some other generative AI with video program, they will be possible to believe this video is accurate.
So this is sort of like testing the waters to see what people will believe, and then perhaps this could be used to create other videos.
Indeed, they can purify the community to see like there's a community A that is definitely having trust on this video. They might be like community B, they have no idea around this kind of element or maybe content inside the video.
Now I should mention that below the video it does say that this was, created as AI, so I think it's pretty upfront. But there is one comment below the video that warned that if fake videos like this aren't controlled, the world could descend into chaos. Alan, how good are people at spotting fake videos?
There was a disclaimer and people were like jumping to the comment section saying this is fake. Also, based on our common sense, we knew roasted pigs wouldn't just like jump out or like just like got alive again. So that
I hope not.
Yeah, like it's pretty common sense, right? But I do want to echo what Billion just said. I think videos like this, they tend to bombard you with a lot of information that might be inaccurate, or they bombard you with AI deepfakes. When you're digital world is full of trashy content like this or like inaccurate content like this, that might affect your feed. And that could also affect your future perception of your content. So it is concerning.
So how does Cofacts work behind the scenes? Have a look at this.
Cofacts is a fact-checking chatbot with AI features that helps verify disinformation. Also, it is an open-source software helping everyone use and develop one freely. Regardless of input text, images, videos, or audio, Cofacts will compare them among the database to check for false information. If there is no relevant information in the database, AI will recognize the content and provide suggestions for fact-checking directions as a media literacy training. Cofacts will convert media into text, automatically categorize information, speeding up the whole process. Cofacts, developed in Taiwan, is a collaborative platform for fact-checking. Join us in development.
So, Billion, can you explain what is your process for fact-checking videos like this?
Our strategy is open source intelligence, like ocean. So we provide all the accessible information we could reach. Then we just connect those kind of like disinformation claim and also the verified information with references. Once another audience, they receive this kind of false content, they can just receive the verified information as soon as possible. So that means we want to cherish like really important fact-check work or maybe journalist work.
So you have like about 4,000 volunteers that are doing this work?
Yes.
Nobody's getting paid to do this. This is all people that are willing to do this. How do you work with so many people?
That means like we don't really hire them formally. We show this because we provide civic empowerment. We have like regular chat, workshop, lectures to reach out to the community. We think like community work is important, especially when there's a lot of new disinformation around the world. We cannot always like run after those kind of false content. That's the reason why we need to do something initiatively.
It seems like a lot of disinformation is also just to make people nervous or to create some sort of anxiety within a population of people as well.
Because emotion works. When you trigger somebody's emotion, like you like it, you don't like it, so you might share those kind of content. They help algorithm to spread this kind of content to a further far place. So they also make this kind of content works really well around propaganda campaign, also advertising campaign.
Now, Alan, I want to talk about the work that you've done as a journalist. Before you came to TaiwanPlus, you worked for RFA's Asia Fact Check Lab. And I want to talk about one of the pieces you worked on. Did China Coast Guard ships ignore prohibited waters around Taiwan's Kinmen or Jinmen area? Tell me, what did that involve?
There was one time 2 Chinese fishermen who was doing fishing near Kinmen Island. They got intercepted by Taiwan's Coast Guard. So basically, the incident happened and then they passed away because of that incident. So Chinese Coast Guard immediately, through state media outlets, announced that they were going to start patrolling Taiwan's Kinmen water regularly. And then every day they were just like posting, footages and images of Chinese Coast Guard entering Kinmen's prohibited and restricted waters. So basically, outside of Jinmen, we had our own restricted and prohibited water lines. So China tried to use this to demonstrate that, China has control over seas surrounding Taiwan and Kinmen.
And we should mention that also that the Jinmen Islands are just like about 10 kilometers away from the Chinese coastline. So they're very, very close to southern China and relatively far away from Taiwan.
People were not just sharing that information online. Basically, all the media outlets in Taiwan also picked it up because it's such a big story. My supervisor and I feel like we need to actually look into it and see if this is just a pure propaganda or China actually sent their coast guards into Kinmen's prohibited waters. Because if they do, that meant a lot to Taiwan geopolitically because that means China has already internalized Kinmen's water as part of their territory.
And what did you find?
So we use this tool called Marine Traffic. It's an open source intelligence tool for maritime activity. And then we pinpoint the water lines around Kinmen. And then we found out that Chinese Coast Guard back then did send ships around Kinmen, but none of them actually went into the prohibited waters of Kinmen like they claim it to be, even though their state media and also Chinese Coast Guard kept posting about it on Twitter, on Weibo, on everywhere.
Now, I know with a lot of investigations into fake news, into disinformation, misinformation, it's really difficult to say for sure that's fake news, or that's just misinformation, or that's just maybe a misunderstanding. What do you do when there's a big gray area?
I would say different fact-check organizations have different cases, but for our case, we were being very cautious with the verdict, the label we want to give to one piece of information. So for example, for that Chinese Coast Guard report, China did send Coast Guards around Taiwan. They did heighten the maritime tension. So we couldn't just straight up saying this is a false information, because it actually kind of happened. The level of seriousness is not the same as what they claim it to be. So we put misleading. But I would say for other people, maybe they would say this is just straight up a lie or straight up a false piece of information. It's pretty subjective, but there's always a line, and it involves a lot of editorial judgment.
Now, I know for journalists, fact-checking is absolutely integral to what we do. Here at TaiwanPlus, we're fact-checking every single day with every story that we do. Billion, why is fact-checking so important for you?
As long as we are human beings, we always have a desire around trusted information, knowledge, and something I should know. Without trust, there's no integrity.
You've been working on Cofacts since 2016.
Yes.
Can you talk about some of the stories that came out in 2016 that you were working on back then? Some of the pieces that really kind of got you inspired to do the work that you're doing?
I suppose it might be human rights issues. In 2016, there's a lot of false content around gender equality and marriage equality. I'm a female, and most of my friends, like, we enjoy our life as heterosexual people. But what about people who are gender minority, transgender, homosexual people? For example, they would say a gay from USA might get eager to get married with a Taiwanese guy to reach Taiwan's free medical care, which is totally nonsense. However, those kind of false content even got used in local election and presidential election. So actually, they're really working on how election and propaganda campaign around even gender equity issues.
Alan, when you think about fake news, are there certain segments of the population that are more likely to be influenced?
I think traditionally speaking, we would think of senior people might be more susceptible to or vulnerable to disinformation. But I would also say these days everyone could fall victim to disinformation. It really depends on what platforms you're on. For older generation, I would say in Taiwan specifically, like in this context, they tend to share a lot of different kind of memes or videos through different Line groups or Facebook groups. And those are the places where I would say it breeds a lot of disinformation.
What do you think, Billion? Do you think that it's also older people that are kind of falling prey to fake news?
And actually, when you see like Rednote, TikTok, and those kind of like fascinating social platforms, who they are targeting, definitely the younger generation. And we can see for political campaign, younger generation is someone doesn't have enough like stereotype or maybe bias toward their like orientation. So actually, they are most attracted by those kind of groups, different kind of groups.
Super politically biased or super politically motivated individuals could be a victim. They could be easy targets for disinformation too, because you are already so strongly opinionated on something. They can just target you very easily with their own version of truth. And it's not limited to just videos or images. It could be also just an article, say, accusing someone of doing something, and you might actually believe it and share the article.
So confirmation bias, people are looking for something to back up what they already believe. Who's creating the most disinformation that we see here in Taiwan? Is it possible to say?
Well, I did a small survey to trace like where this information coming from. And there's over 2,000 replies. And first ranking one, there's around 80% from the feedback saying this information coming from China. Ranking second is USA. Ranking third, Taiwan generated this information itself. I participated in another conference in Australia. And people say, if you ask this question in Europe, you might receive like total different like answer. Maybe like the majority might say disinformation coming from Russian Federation.
Different civic organizations have released reports on where the disinformation in Taiwan came from. Lots of the focuses have been on China. And I would agree that China has been the major source of the disinformation, especially when it comes to political content. But there are also all kinds of ways of spreading disinformation. Sometimes it's, like I said, Taiwanese political groups or people who have different beliefs share their own contents, and they got regenerated by or remade by Chinese influencers or even Taiwanese influencers. And then they got spread again in both China or Taiwan. So it's pretty hard to say there's an exact answer for that. But I would definitely say China is a major source of disinformation, because if you think about it, who wants to invade our information space the most? Who wants to sow disbelief in our government? I think that's pretty obvious.
And we should mention, of course, China considers Taiwan to be part of its territory and has not renounced the use of force to take it. And so, obviously, for here in Taiwan, which has been ruled by, its own government, this is a huge concern. Now, let's talk about AI and disinformation. Alan, you actually did a piece about the risks posed by using the Chinese AI models. Let's have a look at that.
But beyond the cybersecurity risks, these Chinese AI models have also been found to provide heavily biased or false information, pushing out pro-Beijing narratives on sensitive topics.
Critics say DeepSeek often engages in information control. But how serious is that control? Let's test it out. When I ask DeepSeek if Taiwan is a country, it immediately says Taiwan is an inalienable part of China. Now, when I ask it to tell me about the Tiananmen Square massacre, it says it cannot answer the question.
Experts say AI models give what's called differentiated responses based on the company's instructions. This is often subtle, mixing half-truths with falsehoods, making it hard for users to tell what's real and what is not.
So what's the real risk here?
Chinese AI models pose two kinds of risks. One is security risks. Very obviously, because Chinese AI models could gather users' information, for example, your preferences, your gender, what kind of contents do you usually search, and then where you're from, which is critical because they can gather Taiwanese users' preferences on their platform. And they can, for further steps, make algorithms for them. And then the second one is disinformation, very obviously. One thing is security issues, more like cyber, your personal information issue. And the second one is the information they feed you itself.
One of the pieces that you did was about Chinese state media suggesting that the Chinese military had filmed Taipei 101 with drones during military drills.
China released a photo of Taipei 101, claiming that their military drones have come so close to Taiwan and actually got to film Taipei 101 so close. A lot of people in Taiwan, that was actually surprising to me because a lot of people back then immediately found that suspicious. And they actually called that photo out for being deepfaked or AI generated. I talked to the experts about this. That expert told me he didn't think that was AI generated, but it could still be a piece of disinformation. The footage could have been filmed by a civilian drone instead of military drones, because military drones usually took footage from a farther distance, and that photo didn't show it that way. So this also shows how complicated it is to debunk disinformation or to actually identify if something is disinformation, because sometimes you just don't have the answer. Sometimes you just have to guess. But I would say the way is always to take things with a grain of salt and then be a little doubtful, ask questions.
In early 2025, you fact-checked a video that circulated in Chinese language social media claiming that it shows a New Year's dance party on a Taiwanese Navy ship. Tell us about that story.
For disinformation like this, it's very clear the purpose is to undermine Taiwan's military capability. Try to show the world, Taiwan's military is not even doing a real job. They're just having fun, hosting parties on the vessel. But then we found out that footage specifically
was from one club in Bangkok, Thailand. And they were hosting this sailor-themed party. So the Chinese influencers were using that footage to create this narrative that Taiwan's military is not doing a real job.
So is this geared towards, making Taiwanese people nervous or to emboldening the Chinese public?
I would say mostly emboldening Chinese public and also just kind of like reinforce your idea of Taiwan's military's weaknesses. Because when it comes to Taiwan and Taiwanese and Chinese military power, people always think of China as a way larger forces, which is also true in some way. But this kind of disinformation would reinforce that idea.
Now, AI is making it easier to create and spread disinformation, but it's also getting harder to detect what is AI-generated content. Are you able to keep up with the demand for fact-checking all of this AI-driven content?
Definitely, we don't want always run after those kind of false content, especially when they just conducted by someone we don't know, like generative AI, just like a model. We want our audience to always feel suspicious, always feel doubtful toward latest content on the internet. So we also use a different kind of prompt and language model to influence our audiences and readers to see what they can do to provide critical thinking ideas and also to verify information and detail themselves.
Elections tend to drive a lot of the online activity that we see. How much busier does Cofacts get before elections?
So we have already observed around 10 years, several elections, around 4 or 5. Before the election, there might be around 40% increasing among the content targeting political issues.
How do you keep up with that?
So we just working more hours. That's basic work we can provide. And also we always be well prepared. For example, 2026, definitely we do have our local elections. So we also try to figure out what we could do.
What kinds of things will you be looking for? What kinds of disinformation appears ahead of elections?
Scandal to a politician, and also manipulated idea around warfare issues. Warfare issue, nationality issue has always been a quite biggest issue among Taiwan elections. National defense, and also, for example, a lot of disinformation might say if you vote for a specific party, you might turn our next generation to the front line. Okay. So that's we call a threaten, emotional threaten. And also scandal to a politician to make you think of the politician's statement is not trustworthy, so don't vote for them because a politician should be maintain their integrity.
Alan, when you were at RFA, you did live fact-checking during the last presidential and vice presidential debates in Taiwan. What kinds of claims were you tracking?
During the vice presidential debates, one of the candidates who's obviously against the Tsai-Ing-wen, the DPP administration, he claimed that during Tsai-Ing-wen administration, Taiwan lost a lot of diplomatic allies. And then during Ma Ying-jeou, which is the presidents before Tsai, no diplomatic allies have broke ties with Taiwan. So we were a little suspicious about that. We looked up sources and we found out actually during Ma Ying-jeou, Gambia broke ties with Taiwan diplomatically. So that is clearly mis or disinformation. At least we can call that a false statement. Fact-checking doesn't really do anything that's opinionated. So for example, if someone says Tsai has done bad diplomacy work, that's not something we can fact-check because good or bad, it's opinions. But if someone says, oh, Tsai has broke ties with more than 10 countries, 10 diplomatic allies, then that's something we can fact-check because it's a number. There's a figure, there's a physical thing for us to fact-check.
I'm going to end with the same question for both of you. Are you hopeful that we can keep disinformation in check even if we can't defeat it? We'll start with you, Alan.
We all know AI could help generate a lot of disinformation, or people these days, everyone could be an influencer on social media. So there's a lot of unverified information on the internet, and that does concern me, especially during this time when most of the governments in the world are cutting fundings for fact-check organizations, or big companies don't care about fact-checks anymore. Although I do feel concerned about less fact-checking efforts than before,
I do still feel hopeful, especially when we're living in a democracy. When it comes to politics, if you have different sides of opinions, if you have people who support different politicians and different values, somehow I would say they would help fact check each other. And then that actually helps clear disinformation. So I do think we should still have belief in democracy and think things could be sorted in the end.
If you found something is like weird, you can just show your like verification. You show your process, and then you can show your detail. And we never stop conversation. We show the discussion, and that's a really great way to think of like, for example, news media, press freedom, and also how people value democracy.
Well, thank you to both of you for doing the incredibly important work that you're both continuing to do to keep disinformation in check. Again, we've been talking with Billion Lee of Cofacts and Alan Liu of TaiwanPlus. And thank you for joining us for this edition of Correspondents. For more stories from Taiwan and around the world, download the TaiwanPlus app or follow us online. We'll see you next time.